Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to the Spheres of Spirit with Nancy Myers, aka the Lady of the Light. Nancy will discuss the everyday magic and wisdom of spirit which surrounds each of us, waiting to be discovered. She will share some of her remarkable orb photos, proving that our angels, guides, loved ones in spirit, and even pets surround us and guide us in our physical world. During this episode, Nancy will discuss one of the many spheres or aspects of spirit available to us based on her orb photography. She will also share a special channeled message from her guide, Leonini, and do an oracle card reading to help guide you along your personal spiritual adventure. And now, here is your host, orb photographer, author, medium, and speaker, Nancy Myers.
Hi, I am Nancy Myers, and this is the Spheres of Spirit. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am just elated to be able to welcome my special guest today. This is Hollister Rand. Hi, Hollister. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Nancy. It's so good to be with you.
Thank you. Let me tell you a little bit about Hollister. She has provided detailed messages from Spirit for more than 25 years. Her work on television includes Tori Dean, Home Sweet Hollywood, and America Now. Her radio appearances include Sirius XM's John Edward and Psychic Radio, KOST FM's Angels in Waiting, KBIG 104's Radio Medium, and Coast to Coast AM with George Noory. Those are big deals. During her
And
marriage,
a lot of fun.
I know. During her marriage, and this surprised me, I didn't learn this until I knew you for several years. But during your marriage to your college sweetheart and fellow medium, James von Praagh, um, your passion for spirit communication blossomed. Following their divorce, Hollister expanded her dedication to the healing work of mediumship with events and workshops in the U.S. and abroad. It has been her honor to work with respected mediums, including Robert Brown and John Edwards. So, again, welcome. That's quite an
Thank you
intro.
so much. It's so good to be here.
Today, Hollister has written 2 books. The first book is called I'm Not Dead, I'm Different. We'll talk about that one in a minute. But on this broadcast, we want to kind of focus on your second book, which is called Everything You Wanted to Know About the Afterlife, but Were Too Afraid to Ask.
Yes. It is.
And of course,
I gotta find the center of the.
I know, right? That took me right back to, I think it was the 70s, everything you wanted to know about, so
Yes.
it was funny.
Exactly.
So, what you've done is you kind of set that up with several questions, which I'm going to talk about a little bit today on the show. And I have a few of my own. And for my audience, if you have a question, not personal, not for a reading, please, but if you have a question, please type it up in the message center, and I will get to as many of those as I can. So I have a little story to tell. People who have been following my podcast know that I tell this story often because they say, well, how did you get started in orb photography? Well, this lovely lady is the one responsible.
I would say the spirits are responsible, but I was certainly a cooperative component.
Yes, you were. And Spirit's my son. Hollister was the very first medium that I had ever gone to, and it was about 6 months after my son Robbie had crossed. And Hollister asked me right in the middle of the reading, after she confirmed that it was my son and he was standing next to me, she said, "Do you know what orbs are?" "Nope." And you said, "That is your work." And boy, has it ever been. So thank you for that. Thank you for trusting the message to deliver.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. When spirit inspires me to say something, I say it. I have no filter, truly. And I have such chills as we're talking about this because as a medium, the spirits give me messages and I provide those messages and then I walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't often get to see the fruit of those messages. I don't often get to see what becomes of that message. And with you, I have gotten to see that. And that is a real thrill for me to see how, because I didn't remember that coming up in our first session together, because I don't retain obviously everything that comes through, or how would I walk around? My head would be too heavy. But this seeing how that question and that inspiration from spirit has brought you to a place of working with Robbie and bringing peace and connection to so many. I mean, it brings joy to my heart and reminds me why I do this.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, it's been quite an amazing journey. With Hollister, I have gotten several readings, which I highly recommend, and we'll go through her contact information at the end of this. I've also taken several workshops. So I consider you my mentor and friend, and I highly recommend anybody, if you get a chance to take a workshop with Hollister, to do it. Your workshops helped me move down that path that you told me about. So again, it was a remarkable journey. So let me bring up the first slide if I can, Chris, because we're going to talk about the book. But I wanted to share this slide with you because the name obviously is everything you wanted to know about the afterlife, but were too afraid to ask. Well, here's an orb, and an amazing orb I just got 3 nights ago, by the way. The orbs change for me all the time. So the quote that I put was, "We do not fear the unknown. We fear what we think we know about the unknown." I thought that was a very powerful quote by Teal Swan. Thank you very much, Chris. So for those listening, you can go to my website or here at Om Times Radio to view the slides that I've put up. And so I'm going to start with first a question about a little bit about your history. First of all, when I found out that you had spent time growing up in Woodstock, I just went, "Oh, no wonder I'm drawn. I'm an old hippie, of course. How cool is that?" But when did you first start? Were you what they call a natural born medium? Like for me, I had to work really, really hard. But how did it happen for you?
Well, what I have come to truly understand about mediumship is mediums are both born and made. And it's almost always a combination of the two. When I was young, I saw my grandfather who had died at the foot of my bed, and he would kiss me on my forehead. We had a very special relationship. And when he died, I couldn't understand what people were trying to explain to me, that he had died and he was with Jesus and he was in heaven. And I couldn't make sense of it because I was still seeing him. And
Ah,
then one day, one evening, he showed up with a little boy. And that little boy, I came to understand, was my uncle who had died of complications due to a burst appendix when he was, I don't know, maybe 6 years old.
and you knew
And
nothing about that.
I knew nothing about him, but it was a
Wow.
real family tragedy. And at that point, I knew there was something different about what I was seeing as opposed to what everybody else was experiencing because of the reaction to the reporting of that. So I
That
did
was
my
my next
best to sort of
question.
I did my best to tamp that down for
Ah,
many, many years. And it
okay.
wasn't until I was in a severe car accident that it kind of blew everything open.
How? How did that blow everything open?
I'm thinking it was probably due to the severe head injury that I had.
Oh.
Um, and many mediums have reported that a severe trauma or near death experience
Mhm.
will bring them to the point of spirit connection. I speak at groups, International Association of Near Death Studies, IANS groups, and have come in contact with many, many people who, like me, sort of straddled that place between life and death with severe trauma, often due to accident or, some sort of physical trauma. What I'm discovering now is that this young generation that we have on this planet, X, Y, and Z, these last three generations have grown up without the fear around spirit connection. And so
Yes.
there isn't this tamping down of it and
Mm-mm.
the forcible opening up again due to trauma. It is now really this kind of growth and acceptance, and I
Yeah.
love being part of all of that.
Yeah. They're no longer threatening to burn us at the stake.
Yeah, well, for the moment.
Yeah.
So,
I know,
you
right?
know, history is always cyclical, but for right now, we have a place here, and all mediums and all sensitive people give spirit a place on the earth. And
Mm.
that is really one of the greatest reasons to connect with spirit. We think it's for us. We think it's to heal our own grief, to reconnect with the people that we love. But you've been in my classes, Nancy. What ends up happening is we realize we can bring healing to each other. And
Yeah.
not only that, by our presence and connection, we bring spirit here. We give them a place at the table. And that's the exciting thing.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'll go back to what you told me when I first met you, and you said you're working with your son to heal souls on his side and heal souls on your side. And at the time, I had no idea how that worked, and I have since come to see that. But yeah, that's exactly right. It's wow. So let me start with some of the questions, if I can. First question that I wrote down, and I get this a lot too, is do spirits need time to acclimate in the other side before we can hear from them?
I and many other mediums thought that they did. There was the idea of the spirit hospital where
Hmm.
they can regain energy. What I've come to understand, and spirit shows me this, it's not like I have the great idea, and then I put it forth. Spirit often shows me by example. So what started to happen was spirits were showing up and speaking to their loved ones almost immediately after passing. And there are two things that came to mind. One was a large event, and I came to a lady, mentioned a person that she taught in school. This was a Saturday night. He had disappeared on the Friday night, and
Oh
he
my
showed
gosh.
up Saturday night to her. Then I was at a small spirit circle in Maryland, and two women came. They were sisters, and their mother in spirit talked about her funeral. Should she have one? Should she not have one? And that was apparently a discussion that day because the mother had died that morning.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, I thought, wait a minute, what's going on? Why are spirits showing up immediately? And I've come to understand that with our acceptance of spirit communication, we are more open. How soon spirits can communicate have a lot more to do with where we are in our understanding of spirit communication, and also our grief process or
Hmm.
our grievance. You see, where there is grievance, shouldn't have died this way. This shouldn't have happened. This is wrong. In situations like that, it can be difficult. That's a difficult energy for the spirits to work with.
Sure.
But I've seen tremendous changes over the years I've been doing this. Spirits are showing up like this, and it's very exciting.
It is very exciting, and I have a little bit of a follow-up question because Robbie has told me time and time again there is no such thing as time. So even though they have just crossed in the morning, they could have been there for decades and then come back or readjusted to our time. Does that make sense?
Well, there is no time as we understand it here. And
Mhm.
the way that spirits work with me with that concept is wherever there is healing here in the eternal present moment. That is where the spirits exist, in the eternal present moment, where everything exists at the same time. And when we work in the present moment, that's the only place where we're meeting and where change can happen. And it happens both in ancestral work and in future generations. So when there is a healing and there is a change with a spirit and a person who is getting a message, it reverberates through what we consider time, backwards and forwards. There's a healing in the entire family line,
Wow.
and all the pain and trauma of our ancestors can be healed by what we do here. This is the reason why incarnation is so important. It places us at a space in time where all of these things can gather energetically and then reverberate. Boom, 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 boom. Right
Wow.
now, the eternal present moment here with us on the earth plane is that meeting place.
Mm, that's fascinating. We're going to talk a little bit more about reincarnation and maybe karma. So hang on to that one. So I get this a lot, and I've seen people feel this way. Do we have to go to cemeteries? Do we have to go to their places of internment to connect with our loved ones? I mean, obviously, I know the answer to that, but just
Well,
for clarification for our listeners.
Well, I live next to a cemetery. And when people
Of
find
course
that
you
out, they're
do.
like, are you kidding? A medium living next to a cemetery? I'm like, it's so quiet. They don't bother me here because they're with their loved ones. Now, when I walk through the cemetery, because it's one of my favorite places to walk, there's so much love and connection there. It just feels good to be in this place of peace. But as I'm walking through the cemetery, if there are families there, if they are sitting by the graveside, their loved ones are with them there. When they get up and get in the car, I'm like, well, look at that. It's like all the loved ones go with them. It's they don't leave them at the cemetery. The spirits aren't sitting there going, are they going to come today? Are they going to come today? Absolutely not. They will
Exactly.
accompany their loved ones to the cemetery. Once again, it's a meeting place.
Yeah.
There was one lady I met in the cemetery next door. She was there every single day. I went walking, and she would bring a picnic lunch and sit there and talk with her husband.
Oh.
It was the sweetest thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I think for some reason or some people, it serves, like you said, as a meeting place, but as a focal place.
Yes.
I'm gonna sit here and put all my intention on communicating with my loved one and tune everything out. So, but I, like you, have told people, they're right because I've seen them in the orbs on their shoulders, they're right next to
Yep.
you.
Well,
So,
and now people are choosing many different ways to release the body, and to handle that, whether it's cremation, whether it's
mhm.
scattering ashes, whether it's sharing ashes. I just lost my dog Bodie, and I think you met
Oh,
Bodie.
I
He has been with
did.
me since I think 2011, or yeah, I think he was with me since 2011, and he was a rescue dog. And I'm going to do something that I have never done with another pet. I'm going to get a necklace where I can put some of his ashes in,
Ah,
because there's this feeling of I just want him traveling with me as he
yeah,
always did.
yeah.
So it's much more about me. He
Yes,
doesn't need it. In fact, he's
exactly.
like, what? Oh, dirt. I can dig in it. That's pretty much what he's thinking about his cremains.
Yeah.
But yeah, for it's so in that sense, I've become one of my own clients.
That's funny. I'm with you. Because I took some of Robbie's ashes, and it's in like a clear snow globe orb kind of thing. And he came through a medium, and she said, "What's this snow globe thing he's showing me?" So they were aware of it. But when I asked him what he wanted his ashes to go, he just went, "I don't care.
Yeah,
That's for you, not for me."
that's exactly right. The spirits are just not hung up on all of this.
No, no, because they realize they're more than the body. Yeah. So, let me go back to another question here, and I think maybe one is mine. Do I've always asked Robbie, "What are you doing over there? What occupies your quote unquote time?" Do they have jobs, and or do the spirits who were very important or integral in moving mankind along still use those talents somehow to help us?
Yes, yes, and yes. So, what I find fascinating when I'm speaking with a client, and let's say 5 family members show up,
Mm.
each family member will mention how they are helping this person.
Ah,
And it's often that they have a talent in that way. So, let's say a grandmother shows up and I see her in the kitchen. She was known for cooking. And what she says to the person sitting with me in session, I am helping you cook in a new way. And then it turns out that the sitter has a new diet they have to adapt to, whether it's
ah,
for medical reasons or weight loss or whatever the reason may be. And this grandmother is right there with this person, may never have cooked in this particular way, but we're on board and we're going to do this together. And what I find really fascinating are loved ones in spirit, or even those with whom we may have had difficulties, when they show up at the frequency of love, because I work at that frequency, they will often help to heal within the family the very situations they created or perpetuated. And I'm thinking mostly with addictions, abuse, things like that. So the most unlikely allies, the father who was an alcoholic, abandoned his family, or things along those lines, their job is helping others in the family, grandsons, nephews, to deal with some of the same addictions. So yeah, everybody has a job. And those who are elevated spirits, um, And even those who seem to be sort of regular everyday people, but gurus or saints. And I'm
Mm,
thinking Mother Teresa as an example. I
sure.
had a group of hospice people in a spirit circle. They all worked together. I didn't realize this, but in their midst, Mother Teresa showed up. And it turns out, and I thought, am I making this up? Am I really, because when you see one of these elevated people, Christ consciousness is another that I've seen. So Mother Mary makes
Mm.
appearances. So when I saw Mother Teresa, of course, my deal with the spirits is I receive it, I give it. You give it to me, I don't censor anything. Well, it turns out this group worked in the way of Mother Teresa, even though they were lay people. And so is very important to them, and she is helping them move forward. They were thinking of instituting new ways of helping those who are dying.
Wow.
So yes, those who are elevated are still moving things forward here on this earth planet.
Wow. I'm going to go off track here just a minute because I think I remember a story that you told, and for some reason you were watching an operation and was that you and you were watching the doctors?
No, that was
Oh,
not, I don't think that was me.
okay. Okay. But
No.
what
Although
the
I've
media
had a couple of operations and they all turned out well. So,
No, you
yay.
were you were this story is just for my audience to finish. The medium for some reason was observing this surgery. She wasn't the patient or anything, but she could see the spirits like doctors go and assist the hands of the actual doctors who were doing the surgery. It was quite fascinating.
Yeah, that is very common. So, where I have seen similar things like that is with musicians. My background
Oh,
being in the entertainment industry, I once had someone working on a movie who came, and the stars that the movie was about were with him. Now, I didn't know what he was doing, but I thought, what is this person doing here? What is that person doing here? And it turns out they were helping filmmakers. Um, Artists who have passed will help, musicians who have passed will help musicians here. So there's constant inspiration and moving things forward. Yeah.
so they take their gifts with them, their talents with them, and then
Well, yes. And that
assist.
also helps to explain child prodigies. How people can come to this earth and all of a sudden it's like, how could you write that piece of music? How could you play the piano like that? There are abilities that we do not lose. In other words, whatever we learn in this lifetime, although when we're born, we may not always remember the particulars of all those lifetimes. Heck, it's difficult enough to manage life in this lifetime, much less be dragging all the other ones and the details from that. But we bring our knowledge, everything that's accumulated, our past lives, our talents. We absolutely do.
Yeah, I read just recently that one of the things we take is obviously love, but our knowledge. We take our knowledge with us.
Well, and I write about that in the book,
Mhm.
because people say you can't take it with you. Well, in the book, I talk about what is it that you can take with you.
Exactly. It's not
And that's one of
things.
the things is what
Yeah,
we learn here.
yeah, yeah. That's amazing. Um, so, w I'm debating whether I need to break, but, before I ask this question. Oh, but let me ask this one question as a follow-up. So you said there might be a father who had an alcohol problem and now he's assisting the family. Do you think that that's kind of two-pronged, one to help his soul heal also and atone, if you will, for lack of a better word, as well as help his family?
Yes, it's absolutely collective. This is one of the most powerful messages I think from spirit is that we are collective. We think we're individual, but we
Yeah.
really don't operate that way. And science backs this up, with taking two heart cells and two petri dishes, and before you know it, they're beating at the same time. So
Mhm.
there's this this real joining and collective thing where if there's change in one area of the network, there's change in every area of the network. And Spirit shows me that all the time. So when we pass, we realize how our lives have impacted those we've loved and those we've wounded. And sometimes those people are the same. And so with that knowledge and that understanding, we fully feel and experience the pain we have caused others. And that is the impetus in love, because we experience that in love. That's the impetus to bring about change.
Okay, we're going to talk more about that when we come back from break. So give me a minute here to go on break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Hollister, what's the difference between ghosts and spirit? We'll be right back.
Om Times TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
When I first saw Turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We had this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a little bit of a lot of things,
but they're all pure love.
And welcome back. So this question you actually started your book with, I believe, was what is the difference between a ghost and a spirit?
There's a lot of confusion about that. When I first started working as a medium, actually, even before I started working as a medium, I was doing some ghost busting stuff. And I met some very not nice entities. And I thought, is this how I really want to interact with the unseen world? I thought, no, I really want to work with loved ones, with people who want the best for others. So I tuned myself to the frequency of divine love. And at that frequency, only the good spirits show up. If a spirit speaks with me during a session, even if they were difficult here on this earth plane, it means there's been a change. So you can shift who you speak with by what frequency you work at. So ghosts tend to be more dense, close to the earth. And in the book, I have a very simple little table of explanation. And let's see what it is. Here we go. Ghosts are attached to places on earth. Spirits remain connected to loved ones. So when you think about connection, a ghost wants to own something here on this earth plane. That's my house and you shouldn't be in it, Whereas a loved one in spirit, even though it was their house, if the family moves, they go with the family. They're not attached to the house. Ghosts can be demanding. Spirits are respectful. So that's what I say when I work at the frequency of divine love, even if there's been a difficult relationship. If a spirit comes at that frequency, there's been a change, there's a respect. And where I can point that out is at a large event I was doing, I think it was in Connecticut. And I was speaking with a man, maybe in the third row, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a spirit standing in the doorway to the ballroom. And the spirit gave me the indication that he was the father of the man I was speaking with. And I said, there's a man here, says he's your father. He's standing in the doorway, but requires your permission before coming in. Are you willing to speak with him? And the man said, no, not today.
Oh, so he was respectful.
And he was respectful of that. So the fact that I could see him means that he was coming in love, but his son wasn't ready.
Ah.
And so as a spirit in love, he respects that. So it is about respect. Ghosts hang on to grievances and anger. Spirits take responsibility for their actions. So a ghost, it's always someone else's fault that they are where they are. You know, I'm standing here in the middle of the road. I was killed here, and that person has to pay. You know, it's that not letting go of any grievance, whereas the spirits take responsibility upon passing, really acknowledging their part in every part of their life. Ghosts are resistant to change. Spirits are willing to share their own transformation and healing in others. So, and encourage healing in others. That's really important. Ghosts are fixed. You know, it's like the same old story, you know, same blank, different day when you talk with a ghost. It's the same story. The story never changes. But with spirits, there's change, there's growth, there's transformation. Ghosts are energized by fear. Spirits are powered by love.
Ah, big difference.
Huge difference. So when we talk about fear and being fearful, that allows ghosts to manifest. I mean, there's a reason why there's an awful lot of activity on Halloween. You know, I just went to a Halloween event, if you can believe that.
Oh.
It's only September. Yes.
Yeah.
And I did that and I thought, you know what? I am just not of the demented clown group. I am just not, this is just not where I belong. You know, not happy at this. Don't want things jumping out at me, you know, all of that kind of thing. Because spirits don't do that. They're not in the, and our fear doesn't power the spirits, but love does. So I hope that's helpful to everybody.
It does. And then for me, I'm going to ask this question. So ghosts are a form of spirit, but if they choose, they can certainly move up and out of that. But it's their choice, right?
That is the huge gift of being in spirit. Actually, being anywhere, you know, is this idea of growth, change, healing, and transformation. There has to be a willingness. You see, that is part of free will. And there are some people, as we even know here on the earth plane, who are unwilling to change and really would prefer just to tell the same story over and over and over again, rather than accept their part in a situation and in vulnerability move through to healing.
But it's also my understanding, though, that our guides, our angels and spirit never give up on us. They keep trying. Yeah.
Never. No, they're always there. Whether we acknowledge them or not, whether we even know they're there or not, that's not the point. If you want to talk about selfless spirits, the guides, the angels, that's that group.
Yeah.
Because they are really there for us. And it's not based on whether we give them compliments or even know who they are. That's not why they are. It really is about moving all of mankind forward and moving all of organic life, but the spirit part of organic life forward to the next transformation.
Ah, very good. So speaking of growing up, as a mother who lost a child, although Robbie was in his late 20s, do spirits, if they cross at a young age, grow up while they're in heaven?
In my first book, I talk about that. There was a child who died as a baby, but she showed up as a 4-year-old to her father. And she had died 4 years prior as a baby.
Oh.
And she went from this 4-year-old child to a baby, and she showed me herself in her father's arms. And she said, in one breath, you gave me enough love for a lifetime. And it turns out she took one breath in her father's arms and died.
Oh, wow.
But they have celebrated a cousin who was born in the same year. So they were keeping pace. Every birthday, every celebration, they included her. So she grew up with the family. Now, the inverse is also true. When I speak with spirits who may have died at an advanced age with their bodies failing, becoming frail, lots of physical ailments, they can show up as 30-year-olds, fit. You know, I can't even begin to tell you how many spirits have arrived and said, I have all of my hair, I have all of my teeth. You know, it's like this big deal, because when we pass, all of the infirmity passes.
Mm-hmm.
And so this includes Alzheimer's, memory is restored. You know, it's everything that's of the body and of our organic body, you know, disappears, and we are pure spirit. And so I just love that people are restored and show themselves to me that way.
Yeah. So do they show you first as they pass, so the loved one recognizes, and then change before your eyes? Is that how it
They
works?
will show themselves as the person will recognize them. And sometimes it's not as an older person, because they may have lost touch with the person they're with. So they will appear as, you know, with indicators as to who they are to that particular person, which is another reason why I don't think spirits show up to me with all of their past lives trailing behind them. You know, we deal as mediums. I deal with spirits in the incarnation that the sitter would know and understand. However, if there's an understanding that the two people have been incarnated at other times, or are twin souls or soulmates, the spirits may talk about other lives in that context.
Gotcha.
But mediumship is based on providing evidential proof of life after death. It's a very narrow focus in that sense.
Yeah, and I've had spirits come, and if, like you said, they've lost contact, or even if it was a grandmother that someone didn't know, but they had a picture of that grandma in a certain hat or with certain necklace, that's how they'll show up, so that they can be
That's exactly
recognized.
right. They will come as they will be recognized.
Yes. Very interesting. So I'm gonna
Which brings up the point that appearance and physicality is very mutable. And so we can adopt that with ourselves and not get locked in to any one way of being here on the earth plane. So and I've even had spirits say this, that we can sit here and imagine ourselves at a different point on the timeline in our world and affect our physicality in that way. So there are even studies that are beginning to show that you can set your body clock at a different point in time. It's fascinating.
Wow. Yeah. I love too how science and spiritualism, you know, you talked about the 2 heart cells. I think there was a famous what's the word I want? Physics experiment. I think it was called the slit experiment, where anyway, if you didn't see it, it didn't happen. But then there's another experiment where 2 things that are separated, no matter how far, what happens to one happens to the other, and the physics have proved that, just what you were talking about. So there are experiments out there.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with science supporting what we are experiencing. And, you know, neuroscience and consciousness science, all of those things are beginning to support what mediums, meditators, and, you know, people who have been exploring those frontiers for some time have been saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for centuries or millennia, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
but
you just
but
have
they
to talk to the Dalai Lama, because there was this idea of brains can't change. And he, saying, yeah, we change our brains with meditation. And well, now it turns out, yeah, our brains are much more elastic
yeah,
than was believed.
reprogrammable.
Imagine that.
I know, and it's a good thing. So, let me ask you one thing because people ask this a lot. Um, is there a hell? When we die, if you've been not the nicest person or you've done something to harm many others or even one other, is there a hell in your opinion, or what happens to those souls?
Well, what I find fascinating about this idea of hell, what I have been shown by the spirits is that everything is about frequency. So we vibrate, we have a certain vibratory level. So can you imagine if everyone who created mass murder or hurt people in a horrible way were all together at one frequency? I mean, if you want to hang hell over that doorway, go right ahead. But it's about, you're looking at all the mass murderers, like Attila the Hun and Hitler, and there
Mhm.
they are sitting and looking at each other, figuring out how to destroy each other. Well, holy cow, that doesn't sound like a tea party I want to go to.
Right.
But I will say something that might be very unpopular with people. And this is that the way to redemption and the way to healing and the way to transformation is open to everyone.
Yes. Yes. And it has
And
to
that's
be.
one of the tenets of spiritualism, the
Yes.
religion spiritualism,
Yes.
which is the religious side of mediumship.
Yes, absolutely. And that's my belief too, because somebody told me once, if we are all created by God, God is incapable of creating anything imperfect. So eventually we all make our way back to the creator. So I would agree with you. Um,
For some,
when
it's a longer journey than
yes,
for others.
definitely.
That's what I
Definitely.
want to say.
Absolutely. Can spirit, our guides, our angels, make us do something that we don't want to do?
Mm, 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 mm. The idea of intervention is a bit of a sticky wicket. I have witnessed intervention even in my own life.
Hmm.
And I have heard spirits talk about how a fall, I remember there was a husband in spirit said about his wife, her fall could have been far worse. She didn't hit her head because I held her. And I went, wow, okay. But the fall wasn't prevented. But what ended up happening was in that house, the son went in the house and put up bars and, handholds. And it was kind of a wake up call in that sense.
Ah,
But the truth of the matter is, we are all going to die. So intervention isn't about preventing death as much as it is about spirit connection and reorienting life here on this planet. So that's what I would say.
okay.
It's not about us being made to do anything, but we are inspired to make change. Spirits, spirit is in inspire. This idea of breathing in spirit, being inspired, being guided, very different from being compelled or pushed. Once again, goes back to the idea of ghost and spirit. One
Right.
is very cooperative, and the spirits are very cooperative.
Ah, okay. Okay. I had my own intervention, my son, and I'll tell that story on another show. It's too long to get into, but I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, they will help us. Um, on reincarnation, which I believe some people still struggle with that, but we've talked freely here about past lives. But I do have this question. Can we incarnate as anything except human? Other than human?
There are many who believe that's not true. But what I would say is, I have spoken with animals in spirit who I have not known are animals until they have told me they are or showed me their bodies. I have thought that I have been speaking to another person.
Wow.
And so and this happens almost always with people who see their animals as their children
Mm-hmm.
or as their family members and treat them as such and speak to them as such. They will reflect that back to me as I'm speaking with them. And I remember early on in my work as a medium, I was doing a session for someone and I said, oh, I knew it, I had a sense it was a he, likes to be with you in the garden, likes to dig in the dirt with you. Oh, yes. And all of these things. Well, and then at the end, and I thought, this is the weirdest thing. I can't quite get a handle on this spirit. Likes to dig in the garden, likes to hide things or bury things in the garden, likes to be read to, likes to snuggle at night. I'm like, wow, okay, this is all right. We'll let it go. And in the end, the dog this entity showed me a dog's body, a white fluffy body on a steel table. And I said, I see a white dog's body on a steel table. And she yelled, he is the dog, and I went, oh, it was like,
Wow.
It was kind of a big reveal for me. Oh, now it all makes sense.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really intriguing. I don't really know the answer to that question. I can only report what my experience has been. And
Okay.
I have had spirits say, I was born into this body or that body because I wanted a short life, didn't want to go to school, didn't want to wear clothes, but wanted to be with you.
Ah.
So I allow it to be what it is and
Okay.
not place a judgment on it. That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah. It's just an interesting thought. So I have a question about when our loved ones visit us in our dreams, because there is a difference between a dream and a visit. The visits you remember so vividly. But my question to you is, when that happens, Hollister, are they visiting us in our realm or have we gone to their realm?
It's a bit of both.
Ah.
There is a meeting place. In a sense, we are very dense here on this earth. But when we sleep, there's some freedom. We can move beyond our bodies. There are things like remote viewing, astral travel, this idea of being connected but not, having expanded consciousness. And people who have been in comas will report this, that kind of thing of being beyond the body, but still attached to it in some way. And so in that sense, that being joined with spirit or meeting in a place, I had a client report once that she was sitting in a white room with white furniture, and it was a modern looking place. And her beloved husband showed up and they sat there and talked. I've had other reports, and this actually I experienced was at a kitchen table that I used to have, which I no longer have, a spirit showing up and we were having coffee.
Huh.
So it can be sort of every day, but it's not something that you have right. Like, I don't have that table anymore.
Yeah.
But that was, that table apparently exists in the afterlife somewhere, or the idea of it. But
Right.
it was the place where I would have spoken with this person.
Isn't that
So,
crazy?
yeah.
Yeah. Again, the memory, we take our memories, we take our love, we take our knowledge with us. So that's so interesting. I can't believe we're almost out of time. It went by too fast. You're just going to have to come back on the show. I have like 10 more questions I
Well,
wrote
go ahead.
down.
Twist my arm. Twist my arm. I'll come back.
But before I run out of time here with you completely, I'd like you to share with the audience how they can reach you.
Very easy. HollisterRand.com. HOLLISTERRAND.com. I'm very easy to find.
Okay, and then on there is how to get a reading, your upcoming
Sure.
events, and then any classes that you'll be offering?
Absolutely. Everything's on the website.
Okay, good. And again, I cannot recommend this beautiful soul to you guys enough. Her readings are incredible. You will have no doubt that she is connecting with your loved ones. So, Hollister, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to see you again, and I will have you back. So,
Wonderful.
You take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, wow, there's so much information. Chris, can we bring up the last slide here? This is a quote from one of the books that I just love. It's called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And here's the quote. It says, "In the afterlife, the light heals all the pain you've suffered in your lifetime, physical, mental, emotional, and otherwise." Thank you, Chris. It's always about the healing. It's always about the light. That's what we all are. We all are light in the end. So I have a special channeled message that I'd like to share with you from Leonini. And she kind of tied it in, as she always does. I got this message yesterday, to what happens when we pass. We didn't get to that too much, but here was Leonini's message. And she showed me this image of a punch card. Do you remember the old punch cards? And I thought, wow, where are we going with that? So here's her message. Punch cards are an older type of technology used to record selections and decisions so that the information can be analyzed at the end of the process. You carry with you a punch card of sorts throughout your life. This card is punched by each action and decision that you make along the way. When it is your time to make your transition home, your ethereal punch card travels with you. However, it is not turned over to be automatically tabulated. You will be given an opportunity to read your own punch card. You will remember each action and good deed, each act of kindness, and yes, even those actions that were made outside of love. We stress that this is not to punish you, but to teach your soul vital lessons. There is no judgment. There is no other judge but you. There is no right or wrong score. There is only experience. So that goes back to what Hollister was saying. She said that we experience how we affected the other people. Now, I'm running out of time here really quick. And so as I'm shuffling the card, I have angel answers since this was a question and answer period. But I want to tell you about my next podcast. I'm going to be talking about the orbs and why the orbs, so many of the orbs have concentric circles, and what I have learned about that, and what I have learned about the language of the universe and how it's represented in the orbs. So it's going to be interesting, and I'll show you many examples of that. So the card that I turn over, it's a simple one. It says yes. So if you were thinking about doing something, or you were unsure, or you thought, well, maybe I need to think about this a little bit more, Spirit says, yes, now is the time. So I want to thank you again for tuning in. It was my pleasure to spend this time with you. I hope to see you again. Take care. Bye-bye.